issue. It was never a personnel issue. It always has to do with the way that leadership was trained, and the way that they preferred to do their management. It's always been the case. It always was. It was never the fact that it was remote work. And here's exactly how I'm going to prove it. I'm going to jump right to the end here, folks, and show you this is how we can prove it. So prior to remote work being, in vogue and being something that was happening that everyone did, were there communication issues at your work? Were there planning issues at your work? Were there personnel issues at your work? And the answer is yes, yes, and yes to all of those. These are not things that are endemic just because of remote work. It was always about weakness in corporate leadership and the management and their preferred style, which is, again, the phrase that I like to use, this is what I coach with my clients, is there's a difference between oversight and line of sight. And we're going to get into those differences today here. Again, for those that don't know, my name is Ryan Howe. I'm a business coach who works out of West Michigan around the country. And I come here on YouTube sharing information I share with my clients. And I hope to earn your subscription. Now, we're going to take a look at an article from Forbes today. The link is in the description. Be sure to go check that out. And the way they sum this up is something I talk about with my clients all the time. If there's a problem going on in the company, it's our fault. Like, it's our fault in leadership and management. And if we're finding that our management and our leadership is unable to manage and lead their people, if they're not directly in front of them, that means that's a us problem in the senior leadership level. We've done something incorrect there, that the training is not there for the systems that we have, whatever happens to be, but that's a us problem. And all of the recruitment that was done for these folks to come on and do remote work, and now to have their lives turned upside down because our managers don't have the training and expertise to be able to lead and manage, remote workers. Right now, we're going back through the economy. And frankly, as far as I'm concerned, for many businesses, they are walking away from talent for talent versus control. And that is something that we definitely want to make sure that isn't the standard operating procedure. Okay. So let's read a little bit here, and then I'm going to cover some stuff about line of sight and other things that I mentioned there. So several corporate leaders have blamed remote work for issues in performance, communication, or workplace culture, championing company-wide return to office mandates. We just saw, again, some more tech companies. They're pushing everything back again. They're saying, hey, everyone be back as of this year. And that's going to somehow be the solution to the problems. And really all they've done is they're just importing the same problems, and they're going to have it by proximity. One of the things that I talked about with my clients here before we continue on here was there is the tyranny of distance, right? And that does exist. And that means that, let's say you have one set of office workers that you work with here directly, right? And you also have another set of office workers that are in the next building over or the next floor up, right? Just that bit of distance away. They might as well be on the other side of the planet, and it has to do with proximity, right? And so your attention and the way we are as human beings, you have to be able to have systems and management tools in place to be able to engineer that type of mentality out of your processes. And that's something I work with my clients to make sure they understand that stuff. And it just drives me nuts when I hear this. Hey, all these people we hired for remote, you guys either need to come in or we're firing you. It's wild to me. Now, these issues occur, like they talk about, regardless of physical location. Remote work just brought them to light. What remote work truly uncovered was an overall weakness in managers and executive leadership, for sure, 100%. Now, here's how flexible work environments expose widespread gaps in today's corporate leadership. And some of the things here. Ineffective management by observation. Now, this is something that I see where many managers do. Again, choosing to lead by visual cues rather than effective coaching and mentorship quickly led to struggle in remote environments. And they call it line of sight, and that's the term in there. Line of sight supervision and if that's their primary tool. So here's what's happening. And again, I want to put this out here so folks can have a better understanding of this, right? Is that when you are doing line of sight management, you are more concerned about watching how everybody is doing their plays every single time and making sure they're doing work. What that means is you have not trained your team to the level that they understand how to operate without your eternal oversight. Further, that has a lot to you as a manager where you don't actually understand the overall objective and have been able to articulate that and translate that in a way that people understand exactly what the component steps are towards the objective, right? So they know the path that they're on to make sure that they're on the right path, right, to get there. That's a manager. That's a you problem, manager. That's you. You haven't done that. If you have to constantly be watching people say, "Oh no, turn left. No, 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 now go right. No, 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 left and right." That's no good, and that's what we're seeing. And there's many managers. That's how they operate because they don't have a fundamental understanding of objectives, goal setting, training, and then also be able to communicate and educate their folks to be able to do those things. And it's omnipresent leadership with that level of oversight. And again, that's why I say that's that difference between we're talking line of sight, right? That's I've got to see you and I'm going to be on top of you and make sure you're doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing versus oversight, which is, hey, I'm going to check in with you on Thursday. You should be here and we're going to see where you're at. Let me know if you're not going to meet the goal by that time. Here's what I need you to do. And you just coordinate with them and then let people do their work instead of constantly checking in with them. Right? And that's one of the things here. Inability to set clear goals become evidence in remote work. 100%. The management and leadership by proximity. It's so how do I want to say it's so demeaning to the individuals that work for you. Right. And we know this, right? Because oh man, the boss is around. Oh, they're going to come in and now I have to explain exactly what I'm working on. Like, where am I at in this right here? Rather than having goal setting and setting the goals. Again, by Thursday at 2 p.m., you should have the following things to me. Like, that's the goal, right? It's got a time, it's got what you need to deliver, the time and the date, and where it needs to be at. That's the goal. And then let your people go instead of I need constant updates on where you're at with everything. And that is where you talk about here, where there's again inability to set clear goals become evident in remote work. This part here, time spent with a green available status on Teams does not correlate to a company's bottom line. I have the number of times where I've been working with clients and I'm like, hey, just because people are moving doesn't mean that they're working. There's for all of it, what we want to get to is a place for most work, right? There's some stuff like you're a customer service rep, right? You got to be there. You're going to be there because you don't know when calls are going to come in. You're working front of house at a restaurant, right? Same things there. However, in most of corporate world, in the office environment, you're really task oriented. I need you to deliver the following things. I need them delivered by this date and time. And what we found is that there's folks that work remotely, as long as they knew when when they're supposed to have something, and the quality and quantity that needs to be delivered, and let them meet that actual execution. We're not really worried about the extra time that they have. Now, I do talk about in other videos, and there's something to this. When there is additional time, when you realize that somebody doesn't need the full amount of time for the work that they're doing, there's a couple things there that, when we are leaders and managers, like, hey, I can ask them to do a little bit more, some more work that I'd like done. That is really what they're talking about here. To which I would go back to the employees, and this is again for folks that I coach that are in, again, on the management and leadership side, and also I have some employees that I one-on-one coach with. Know your worth. If you're able to do the work that they're asking you to do in such and such time, and they come back and they want more work done, that's your place to be able to say, hey, well, I'd like to see a raise if I'm gonna be doing work outside of what my job description is. And conversely, management, if you have identified that this work needs to be done and they're getting it done in a shorter amount of time than you thought, if you want to give them more work to do, by all means, give them more work. Just understand that you're going to have to compensate for that. Or, and this is the worst part of this, is what's happening now. They're laying people off and rehiring in at a lower rate for that work. And that's what we don't want to, what we don't want to do. Okay. And it has to do with the value and some other stuff there. Okay. I'm not a big fan of that. There are times when it does have to happen, and that's for a different video. But for right now, we don't want that to be the standard procedure. Okay. So next spot we got in here, and this is the last one I really want to hit here. Man, use your words, Ryan. Remote work detects when distrust replaces empathy. Okay, and this is something that when I talk about that tyranny of distance, when it comes to leadership management, and the way that things are done, That is 100% one of the issues that I come across is that rather than you work with Bill, Steve, Sarah, whoever, right? Uh, those are the folks that you work with. Yet the folks that work in another office, oh, they're in 329. Oh, they're over in building 47. You end up objectifying these individuals, okay? And that is really, by the way, go check out the link to the entire article. It's in the description. Give it a full read. But these are the areas that I cover with too. Is that when you have folks that are remote work, they end up being objectified. They're not the way that our brains process it. We have to actively decide to treat them as humans and have that empathy here, because if when managers they lead with line of sight management, they by that very nature, it means like a distrust that's there, right? Because you've got to be constantly overlooking folks and just seeing where things are at in real time to be able to provide direction. When you can't see people working, people who default to line of sight management, they default to that they must not be doing work, or they're waiting to hear from me to tell them what to do. And that's where you move in. That is where that separation from empathy. These are my folks. They're working hard. I see them grinding. Okay, they're they're doing stuff. I can leave them alone and just let them work because I can see them. To man, I can't see Mike. He must be screwing off. I haven't got an email from him in 15 minutes, so he must be screwing off. And it makes that flip just because they can't visually see. And that's the issue with this line of sight management that is pervasive throughout, first line supervisors, which I understand. We're going to break down the differences first line versus middle and then senior management. We absolutely get that. And it's there, it's pervasive. And when you get to senior levels, right? When you're in your VP, your director, and your, C-suite folks, they can't afford to do line of sight. It's ineffective, it's inefficient, it costs money, and you're going to burn out, you're going to roll over your staff. But for middle managers, again, they have that no issue. And this is the key component here, folks. And this is why it struggles. And this is what I coach my clients about. Middle management is where you're learning to lead with systems and processes and goal oriented work. Right? I need something done to this level with these deliverables by this time. Right? It's goal oriented. And versus we're in real time doing things, which is what first line supervisors, you're right. You're brand new. You got a little team and you're managing, you're working with them and doing stuff. You're just getting through the day. And that's where the fundamental issue occurs, is that we go from first line supervisors. Of course it's line of sight because they're working with their team. They're on the floor working with them, to middle managers who still have a foot in the door, which should have just a foot in the door on line of sight and just the oversight and moving towards developing those higher level management skills. The only way that we're able to move past that is if there's training and development for those middle managers and the expectation that that's how they manage. And that's just not what we're seeing, folks. It's just not happening anywhere in corporate America. Now, again, this is small business news. And this is, again, I'm coaching small business owners because this is where they get their biggest advantage. If the clients that I work with, we work towards having oversight, goal-oriented work. We do all of our training and development specifically with the idea that the first line supervisor, the management, and then the senior, there's a path, and it's a training path to get them to where that they are developing their teams to where they don't need to have line of sight. Okay. And all this did with remote work was really just identify that the vast majority of senior leaders, the vast majority of management cannot operate unless they are visually looking at you and watching you work. Until the decision is made that that's not okay and there's a push, it doesn't matter if it's remote work or not, or if it's in the office. The same damn problems are going to be there. That's it. That's what we're going to be dealing with, is the same problems. And until that decision is made, like this is enough, you're not going to get there, folks. So with that, what can you do if you're in this situation? And the same thing I've recommended for everybody in those situations. Control what you can. If you have to report, if you have a boss over you that is line of sight, do what you can to implement goal-oriented work within your teams. You can start this as a first line supervisor. You can. You just want to kind of basically practice a little bit. It's got to be limited because you're with your team. But if you're in middle management, folks, you absolutely can set that up. Again, you're going to have to do it in training, and you're going to have to train yourself. And you're also going to have to make sure your bosses, you know exactly when your bosses need to have things done. Okay. But you can. And that's what I've found has been successful for me, for my clients, is we put a line in the sand and saying from here on, we are training and we are developing all of our systems in a way that we can make sure that we are not going to have wasted energy and resources on line of sight. We're going to have things where we are goal oriented because it's just better for everyone. We're all adults. We're coming in to do the work, and we are going to not lead with distrust. We're going to lead with empathy, that folks just want to come in and they want to do their work. They want to get it done and they want to get paid so they can go home and go live their lives. Okay. So with that, hopefully I earned your subscription today, folks. Again, I come here pretty consistently on YouTube, sharing information I share with my clients. And now, if you'd like to learn more about how I help businesses grow faster than ever thought possible and help you build businesses that people want to pay money for on very high multiples, go ahead and check out the link